Let's talk about the Conquest. Alright guys, welcome back to another Bit Heroes video. Today we are talking about the acquisition of the Bit Heroes game by Kong. So if you saw my previous video, you'll know that Juppio sold the Bit Heroes game outright to Kong. Kong is not running the show. Jupp still has a hand in the transition, but eventually it's going to be all Kong. And you might wonder, what does that mean for me as a player? Well, right now it means some pretty good things. We had a three-man development team. That was putting out all the content that we've seen. Now we have a 20-man development team, and also previously that 3-man development team, I think only one person was doing all of the coding or the majority of the coding, which just shows you how much of a beast that developer Mokilock is, that he was able to do it. But we got 20 guys on the team. We've got a lot more in the future of the Bit Heroes game, and if you want more on that, check out the video that I talked about the announcement. But today we're going to talk about a Q&A that has been ongoing for the past couple weeks. It's a massive Q&A. I'll try to go through it as fast as possible. If the video gets too long, I'll chop it up into pieces, but I want to catch everybody up to date, everybody that doesn't feel like going through a 33-page document on their own, and if you don't feel like just digging through just, you know, tons and tons of Discord to try to get your questions answered. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. Before we get started, I do want to give a big thanks to Gilgamesh. He has compiled all this into a Google document to make life a little bit easier. So that took a ton of work, I'm sure, and let's kind of continue on that. Let's build on that work and share this information with all you guys. So these are a bunch of questions asked by the players. They've been answered by Ken. Ken also said that there'll be more developers coming into Discord, and I'll keep you guys up to date with all of that. But let's do this Q&A. So, will older sets be revamped to be stronger weapons to compete with current sets? The answer is likely not. We constantly have to balance old versus new. I prefer to make new versions of new versions instead of old stuff. It makes sense. So one thing is, a lot of players have old stuff they've been up-tiering constantly, and they want to see if their old weapons are going to be upgraded. One reason to not do that is just to not upgrade old stuff is because the number of people that are going to be able or willing to use it is going to be very small. So you're putting a lot of effort in rebalancing stuff that only a small fraction of the population is going to be even interested in. And the other thing is, if they keep updating old stuff, every single tier new stuff comes out, they have this massive debt of old gear. You've got like 10 old contents of gear they have to keep updating and updating. Doesn't make any sense. And then my last point on that is that if you are a player and you like your bow and you like the skills the way it is, even if they update it, you might not enjoy that, and so people are going to complain. Even if it is a net upgrade, people typically complain if you change old stuff, so that makes sense. Will Melvin be around in Tier 11? Melvin makes appearance in Tier 11, so the answer is yes. I've got a doubt about the chances of dropping sets accessory in the next update. Are they going to get any buff? Is there going to be any change in the drop rates? The answer here is we'll be super careful. We have plans to run by the council before announcing, such as mercy rolls and step sales. So we'll probably talk about mercy rolls and step sales a little bit into the future. Mercy rolls is basically if you're farming a certain item or you're going through the shop for a certain thing, every time that you fail, you get a little bit of an increased RNG chance. And so over time, if you've been trying to get that special accessory that you want, your chance to get it goes up and up and up, depending on how much they do that. Would tell you if it's a big or if it's a small change or small feature. Step sales is basically there's something in the shop. You can buy the small version for a small amount. You can pay a little bit more to get a better version. You can pay a little bit more. So like let's say there's a bundle in the shop, and just for easy numbers, it's got like 10 like 10 raid baskets in it. The first step would be you can buy 1 raid basket, you can buy 2, you can buy 5, you can buy 10, and you can just go and kind of climb up the step sale. Maybe that'll be explained a little bit better here in the future. Will player housing or another feature allow us to drop off things for inventories? I'm kind of surprised that this is on here, because inventory is really not an issue. Answer is kind of cool idea. Haven't thought about it. Maybe I wonder if maybe like gear or some sort of trophy stuff from different achievements would be a cosmetic that you kill a certain boss, you can put the statue up. You get the mount from the Exterminator World boss, maybe you can put the mount up as a statue in your house or something. We'll have to see what's going on with the housing update. By the way, there's a housing update. We talked about TS inflation per tier. Any idea how much total stats tier 11 pieces will have? Any ideas on possibly curbing TS growth to keep TS pushing meaningful? The way our formula works, we can add through a few thousand tiers without crazy numbers, do a logarithmic curve design. It'll kick in soon. The way the log works is that you have a slow increase, then you have a rapid increase, then you have a slow increase. It kind of almost looks like an S on a graph. And so the issue here is TS inflation. The more TS that we get as we go up in tier, the less value you get from getting TS in other memes like pushing PvP, guild versus guild. Your leveling TS means a whole lot less. And so if a player added like 100 TS in tier 10, that 100 TS they've added is going to feel like 50 TS in tier 11. So the inflation is something that a lot of players keep an eye on. This is actually a pretty big issue. So we'll see how the math works out. It's kind of hard to answer a mathematic question just in text here, so I see limitations there. Does that devalue TS, for example? TS becomes more vertical. Yeah. So this is kind of talking about the graph. If the graph of TS starts to go up more vertical, we're just skyrocketing, and this is what I just said. Yeah, so 100 TS this tier is going to feel like 500 next tier, and it's going to feel like 250 next tier, and so on. This makes TS a bad investment if they do not do something to curb the inflation. We can add a trillion tiers. In theory, the answer is yes. Might not feel as substantial in short term, but if you look at logarithmic curve, you'll see that it'll actually be more impactful. So he's talking about how after the vertical climb, that it starts to flatten out a little bit towards the top. We'll have to see how that goes in the implemented form. Going from a tier 9 piece to a tier 10 piece increases your total stats by 168. And if you put everything on a graph, the TS increase that we've gotten from tier 1 to 2 to 3 all the way up to tier 10. If you put it on a graph, it's fairly linear. It's not really linear, but it's close enough, and you can project that going from a tier 10 piece to a tier 11 item is going to increase by 200 TS for every piece, and you got 6 pieces including the mount. So basically, if you're max TS in tier 10, by my calculations, you're going to have 1,400 more total stats if you max your TS in tier 11. So we'll see. Can we have bounties for killing other players rotating daily? This is like a Diablo kind of question. Diablo 2. One idea we had, procedurally generated area that multiplayers could enter, but PvP was on, or like PvP dungeons. We need more time to jam those ideas. Dude, I'm all about that. By the way, on TS front, if it starts to become a problem, we will have the economy designers look at it and improve it. So they're very interested in the TS thing. It's actually a core part of the game, so they're going to have an eye on that. They're not just going to let it flop. Any plans to make more hybrid pets such as Crinty? Crinty is heal weakest and attack weakest enemy, so it's the first and only hybrid pet that we have. I'd be interested to see what kind of hybrid pets they would add in the game, but Crinty's awesome, and Crinty's like usually only available around Christmas time. We have plans to make more pets, but not sure on their abilities. This statement, it's not unexpected, but this statement kind of makes you want to think maybe you should hold off on buying pets because maybe something better will happen. This question is asking if they could kind of help out people in other countries, like the equivalent of US dollars to Brazilian dollars, scales prices, so it's really, really expensive. They're working on that. Maybe step sales would be an answer for that one. Wonder if there'll be a healer set in upcoming tiers, because what I've seen, dedicated healers, less of a thing. Working on it, super hard. That's the thing. So the way that the game works right now is tanks put out a lot of the healing. And if you want to be a healer in game, the better way to be a healer is be a DPS with a defensive pet. And if you want to be a damage dealer, be a DPS player with an offensive pet. But we'll see if they add in. There's a lot of players that really, really like the healer class fantasy, and so I understand the interest here. But the way it works out typically is a DPS player with a defensive pet is a healer, the way it works right now, or a tank with a defensive pet is a healer. Any plans to add spread defensive pets into individual boxes? This is actually a pretty big one. So we have Tobert and Dumglim are the only reforgeable defensive pets that have their own box. Tobert is heal and shield team, Dumglim is shield team, and there is no spread pet that's in its own box. So Roog, Urgoth, Sardines don't have their own box, and spread pet is very advantageous for a tank to have, because if you're doing solo content or your entire team dies, spread pet is better at keeping you alive if you're solo. So I always suggest that tanks get a spread pet if they can choose, but right now they can't choose because those are in the random box. You have to play roulette to get it. Let's see. Some accessories and pets become obsolete and irrelevant. like Gemmy, Seraphim Wings, will you make old pets reforgeable and custom accessories? I think this actually was answered, but basically, there's some old pets like Gemmy is not reforgeable, Seraphim Wings is kind of meh. I don't see this ever happening for the same reason that we talked about with old set items. If you keep updating old stuff, every time new stuff comes out, you have to update the old stuff again and again and again. And then also, there's a bajillion players that have destroyed Gemmy and have destroyed Seraphim Wings and have just destroyed all those suboptimal pets. That means all these players are going to go and request that customer service replaces and restores all their old destroyed stuff, and that's going to cause so much work and backlog. There is no way that this is going to happen. Has the TS display bug been discussed? Offline timer bug. So this is something that I've shown on stream a couple times. Basically what happens is if someone changes their gear, it does not update in your raid team. So like let's say I'm over here, I'm wearing my tank gear, and then like 2 minutes later I change to DPS gear, and then you reload your raid team, it will show me as a tank. It'll show my cosmetic, it'll show my stats and everything like that as a tank. We haven't had an answer for this one. I think this might actually be solved with the Armory that is coming. And so for anybody who missed the Armory is a way to use build templates, so you can swap your template, and then on top of that, you can use the build templates of the people on your friends list. So if you have Gavx on your friend list, and Gavx has a tank, a DPS, and a bait build, you can pick which version of Gavx you run in your raid. So that might be coming. It's very likely this is coming with August 30th if everything is on track. So there's not a lot of bugs in the game, but the bugs that are in the game are important to talk about. So there is a offline timer, and basically if you're online for 10 hours and then you log off for 2 hours, it'll say you've been offline for 12 hours. It adds your online time with your offline time, and so we want to make these guys aware of that, because that's actually a pretty big one. The reason why that's a big deal, your offline timer, is because a lot of players and guilds use the offline timer to determine who gets what friend slots. So for my friend slots on the Gavx account, you can't be offline for more than 1 day. If you're offline for more than 24 hours, you get kicked so that someone else that is more active has a chance to get the slot. But if the offline timer is not working, then it's a big problem. So hopefully they're aware of that, and we'll see changes going forward. Is there a chance to not have our trial gauntlet reset every week? And he says the answer is not that I know of. It's your backlog. I'm trying to remember to ask Chuck about it. So when you do a trials and gauntlet, no matter how high you push this week, it's always going to reset for next week. And the level to which it resets is based on your progression through the campaign. So how many stars have you collected through the campaign? So if you cleared everything except for the Gremlin dungeon, you start off your trials and gauntlet at like 1101. If you've beaten the Gremlin dungeon, you start off at like 1751. But regardless of how high you push, I mean, last week I pushed it to 2030 something. It still resets all the way back to your highest clear, or your base clear. So for me, I pushed all the way to 2030, and then it reset all the way down to 1750. There's a bunch of different reasons to argue for and against this, so I understand, but as the way it currently works is that it always resets you. So this question basically goes back to, there's a bunch of players in game that maybe logged on once, they used a name, and they haven't used their account in like 2 years, and there's some pretty cool names that are kind of taken up in this way. This is a tech limitation. We're looking into it, likely as part of a battle tag feature. We notice a lot of players churning out of the game, and they name themselves because they don't get their first pick. So as far as cleaning up old names goes, we're looking into purging names, accounts that have been signed up for a long time. Not sure how we'll roll that out. This is actually very exciting because there's a lot of really good names. I mean, my character name and stuff, I could update that theoretically. Invasions expeditions already available. There are plans to give players better access to the older invasions and expeditions so that players, and especially newer players, are able to more frequently access them. Yes, we're looking into opening up invasions and expeditions as part of our new city expansion. I like having times exclusive to new expeditions, and I'll likely keep that, but I think we might add some permanent expedition invasion portals as part of an OG content access update. These will most likely be updated in batches. So I like this a lot. I like keeping some of the invasions and expeditions rare, but also giving players an option to go back in old content. One of the things that we kind of theory crafted talking about was, if a new invasion comes out, that's cool. But if an old invasion comes out, like maybe when Jelly came out, there's nothing that you need from Jelly. You don't care about Jelly. When old invasions came out, maybe you get access to almost all of the other old invasions, and then the community grind totals will be the same. So the way invasion works is the community grinds. The further the community goes, the more rewards are unlocked. But if you could jump into different portals, maybe if I don't need Jelly, I could jump into the zombie expedition, or excuse me, the zombie invasion or something like that. I'd really like to see that one. Do you mean a portal room with a rotating set of weekly portals, something like that? Yes, or a portal room with all the old ones, or no rotation. So if it's permanent, that's going to be kind of interesting, kind of weird. Personally, I would like to have badge events always available, but I know a lot of people don't necessarily like that. Well, not a lot of people, but a handful of people don't like that. I think more content available in the game is good, and you can do that while keeping certain invasions and expeditions scarce. But I'm very interested to see how the portal room works. Any chance of a reversed fusion in the future? Some people, for example, if you had Bully, which is one of the rarest familiars in the game, and before they added in like Walog and other stuff, you might have fused Bully into Astolly or something that is no longer relevant. Is there a way to get those familiars back? Currently, right now, the answer is no. But if you guys are interested in that, on any of these questions, let me know what you guys are most interested about. Comment, what do you like? What do you hate? And, keep that conversation going. I'm kind of interested in wondering how exactly, could they make a way to salvage old familiars? I don't see it happening, but, what does the community think? I'm very interested to see that. We get more Kong devs active in the Discord. He says soon. There we go. Any plans to allow us to redistribute familiar stats, or at least make them optimal from your end? Asking because there are a lot of great familiars that are unusable because of stat distribution. Answer is not currently. Lastly, any plans on giving mythic familiars their rightful advantage over legendary familiars? Are you happy with how they're almost equal right now? With most instances, legendaries are better. Never happy with the status quo. So right now, the only difference between a mythic and a legendary is, one, the cost. Mythics typically cost around 4 times more than a legendary. Mythics have the same augment bonus as a legendary. Mythics only have 5% more total stats, and they also have a tiny little mythic bonus. So like if you compare Wacom to Walog, Wacom has 5% less total stats, and Walog has 0.5% quad strike, which you could argue is kind of nothing. Super low. You have a 1 in 200 chance, if I did that right, a 1 in 200 chance to actually get the quad strike off, which is not a big chance. 2 quick questions. Will sets and mythics have increased amount of upgrades in the future? 5 for sets, 6 for mythics, ancients maybe. Will there be new armor sets? Will there be new armor slots for our hero in the future installments of the game? And how we make Armory look organized when this happens. There are no plans for adding more upgrades than the current 4. And will we have more slots for the Armory? Potentially no spoilers for the Armory. So basically, like, we have 1 ring, maybe we could get more rings, or instead of having a head and a body, you could have like shoulder armor, leg armor, boots, stuff like that. I'm not saying I'm for that or against that, but that would be kind of interesting. I wonder if the game is going to keep it to only 6 pieces. It's 7 if you include them out. We'll probably see some sort of expansion there, and this is kind of hinting at it. Any plans on fixing the accessory and pet system? Some people spend a lot and get epics, while some people a step sale. So the answer to this is a step sale system. The more that you spend, the higher your chance gets. But that's going to go through the council, so less chance of this happening. This is kind of good. This protects players from getting really screwed by RNG, and the less sting or pain points players have, I think it's better for the community, which is better for the game in a whole. So I'd be interested to see how much this is. Also, step sales, we don't know how gradual the steps are. The steps could be super small, or the steps could actually be really big, so we'll have to find that out. Will we ever get more laser cosmetics? For shizzle. Will Lifesteal ever get reworked? Yes. Interesting. One of my ideas for Lifesteal is, right now, if you have 5% Lifesteal, your character heals for 5% of the damage dealt, and so usually that's a non-factor. It doesn't really matter. So it's kind of seen as nothing. What they could do is they could make 5% lifesteal do like 2.5% damage bonus and have the lifesteal effect or something like that. If you made it a damage multiplier, that would actually make it more appealing. And then damage would still have its place. So 5% damage would still do more damage. 5% lifesteal would do 2.5% damage and a little bit of lifestealing. So you're still getting the ceiling effect. It would make it more usable. That's just one idea that I'm kind of pulling out of my head right there. But who knows? It might get reworked. What about things like dungeon merchants and gems to gold at this point? Dungeon merchants are more or less a trap for new noobs. And those who don't know that wasting gems. So, most likely going to revamp the dungeon merchants. Yeah, right now dungeon merchants are completely a waste. And there's really no reason to go for them. Will auto persuade bribe be available anytime? And you see why it doesn't already exist. So there might be a reason that it's not already in the game, but basically we've all seen it where like you put your character, you run in a dungeon, you come back, you know, like 2 minutes later, and then you found out that you got stuck because the game had a familiar pop up for persuade, you know. And if you got like a checkbox in settings, like have a third tab in settings where it has familiars, and you can check persuade, bribe, or decline for each familiar that you've seen in game, I think that would actually be really good, and I'd be all for that. I wonder if there's a reason not to do it. Maybe it's just like they didn't have it in the UI at the time, but I would like that personally. Because there's no real thought process to it. I know what I'm going to persuade. Some people might say, well, we don't want to have auto bribe in there so you don't accidentally spend gems. I would say add the command and then just don't check the box if you don't want the feature. No one's going to force you to auto bribe. But even if they only added an auto persuade, I think that would be amazing. Do Kong devs take any ideas from the suggestions channel? So in Discord, there's a handful of Discords, but in a lot of the Discords have a suggestions channel, and they totally do. They've seen a lot of good ideas in there, and they've kind of taken from that, which is the whole idea of having a channel like that. Any new meta runes in the future? Yes, but I don't want to spoil them. I hope they do something cool with meta runes. I have a couple ideas. The only meta rune that we don't have that I really want to see is a opposite redirect rune. So right now, a tank has a redirect rune. So if I'm a tank and an attack goes to someone else on my team, I have a chance to redirect that attack to me. I want a rune for DPS players that if an attack goes to them, they have a chance to redirect it away. I don't even care which way it goes, just to anybody else. They can just hot potato it. You know, that's what I want to see. So a redirect away rune. And I think that's going to be probably the biggest thing to close the gap between DPS and tank players, which that gap is pretty much closed. It's super close to being closed. And I've kind of shown that by my tank build and my DPS build being able to clear similar content in TG. But for more of that, check out the stream. Redirect is probably one of the most important and strongest abilities that a tank has. You have 2 jobs as a tank. I guess 3 now. Job 1, don't die. Job 2, redirect so other people on your team don't die. Job 3 is so you have a pet proc that keeps your team nice and supported. So stay alive, redirect away from your team, and then have pet proc. That's pretty much your job. It would have to be something almost game-breaking to take that redirect role away. So I'm kind of wondering what they're going to do there. So currently in the weekly events, rank 1 and rank 2 get the legendary award, and everybody else gets epic. And then everybody below 250 gets rare. I want to swing a pretty big hammer on the leaderboards, but all my ideas shake up the games heavily, so I need some counsel eyes on that. Yeah, there's a lot of big changes that they want to do, and to make sure that this game does not become a different game. People play this game because they enjoy this game. You kind of want to take a careful lens to it and make sure that these changes happen with care, because we don't want this game to turn into a different game. If people want to play a different game, they would play a different game. But I'd be very interested to see some of these changes, and I'm very open-minded to that. Is there any plans to rework how the guild works aside from it being extended friendless with perks? I want to add more guild versus guild competition, but we need to add significant mechanics that make it meaningful. I don't have solid plans yet. We're working on some ideas. They got a lot on their plate, but I'd really, really love to see some more guild versus guild competition stuff going on. Will there ever be community cosmetic competitions where community-made cosmetics can be voted on? This is something that I've been doing every Monday. We've had Cosmetic Monday on stream, but if there was a way for me to have a reward system or something like that, it's actually getting pretty popular. If we could have some sort of reward system, I think that would be awesome. We've Ken's actually talked in my stream about the potential for gifting to other players. Like if I want to gift a player 600 gems or 1,000 gems, or gift them like a small accessory box to open up or something like that. Player-to-player gifting would be good for the game and good for everybody in general. You know, there's a lot of players in the game that won't get anything for their own account, but they would definitely gift things to other accounts. I think that would be amazing. I would like to see that one a lot. And just for me personally, like I would love to run like dueling tournaments or some sort of competition tournaments or cosmetic tournaments or something like that, and then a way for me to reward people. Currently, right now, the only way that I could do it is I could do an event. I could give out like a gift card and just give someone the numbers in Discord and they could go use it, but I have no way of knowing if they use that gift card in game or for whatever else. So anyways, long story short, if there was ways to do rewarding and gifting in game, you're going to see a lot more of it. I would run some tournaments and things like that. That's something that I've really wanted to do for a long time. And if there's a way for Kong to run a cosmetic competition, that'd be cool. In Warcraft, there's a thing, it's some sort of competition that you and a bunch of players get entered into an instance, and it gives you like some sort of cosmetic, like, here's what you're going for. Do this. Make like a healer cosmetic, or make like a warrior cosmetic or something. And people put together the cosmetic, and then everybody in the instance votes on who has the best cosmetic. I feel like and other games have similar things too, but I would like to see something like that added into the game. I think that would be pretty cool. Would there be a die system that you can add your cosmetic? There are no plans of it right now. A die system would be awesome, but games like this use reskins a lot. So there's a red chest piece, and then next year they give you a blue chest piece, and next year they give you a green chest piece. It would completely take away from that system. I would love to see die, but I don't know how they would do it in a way that would kind of work for it. But man, that would be awesome. You could dye your mount, you could dye your familiars. I would love to see cosmetic changes for familiars. I want to be able to know who I'm fighting, but if you could kind of change it in some way, I think that would be pretty cool. I don't see that happening anytime soon because there's like 300 different fusions that they'd have to update, but they could maybe do cosmetic changes just for the Mythics and then slowly roll it out to some legendaries or something like that. That'd be awesome. Are there any plans to expand the current friends list? It seems to be an issue since early bit heroes. Yes, it's in the works. Oh my goodness. I would love to see friends list expanded. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Right now the max you can get is 100. I'd love to see if you get more friends lists for like based on how much level you have, or maybe if you clear an ancient dungeon you get 5 more friend slots or something like that. Friend slots is probably one of the biggest rewards that would be the most impactful for everybody in the game. And the fact that it's in the works, I'm liking it. I think there's some sort of limitations to the technology, which is being worked on. But, oh my goodness, if we get more. And it doesn't have to be crazy. You don't need like 1,000 friend slots, you know, because I'd have the whole server on my friends list. Which, I mean, would be cool, kind of. But, anyways. Like, even adding 5, 10, 20 friend slots would be amazing. And it would add a reward in for leveling up that we currently don't have right now. Have you ever considered a VIP subscription-based thing that other mobile games do, for example? So a lot of times what happens in VIP is the more you spend on a game, you get rewards, and if you spend more, you get VIP 2, and if you spend more, you get VIP 3 and 4 and 5. His answer is, I considered it, and I don't think it would be good for the game. I do think this game will work well with a subscription option. I think a subscription option would actually be good. Again, emphasis on the word option. So if you don't want a subscription, you can completely play the game the same way you're playing right now. But if you do spend on the game, a subscription giving you a discount would be good for everybody, because you would get a discount and the game would know that they have a recurring amount of revenue coming into the game. It would make things more stable for them. So instead of having like a boom and bust where they come out with a sale, everybody spends, and then they have a lull. They have a lull and there's less spending, and then they have a new sale and there's more spending. All these peaks and valleys. If you have subscription, it kind of flattens that out a little bit. It's more consistent, so they know how much money's coming into the game. I think that might help. And then again, for players, you get a discount. On a more serious note about mounts, I do the tricycle. Any chance to toggle off mount / pet / accessory animations? A lot of people like to turn off the pet and the accessory animations. I think when he says animations, he means the art. The animation is actually the movement and the attack. So to be able to turn off the pet and the accessory visually would actually mess up the animations. It would mess up the attack animations. So currently no plans for this one right now. And also, if you can turn off the accessory and the pet, I think there'd be a lot less reason for players to try to buy pets and accessories, because it would be 2 less cosmetics to worry about. So I don't see that happening.